I didn't know what it would have looked like for me to follow Jesus. I didn't know have a roadmap, and it was having someone kind of guide me along was like instrumental. Yeah, I could not have done that without him.
You're listening to the Three Words Podcast. Three words represents the question we like to ask students on the college campuses of Queens and Long Island. What three words would you use to describe your life?
All right. Well, welcome to the next and latest installment of the Three Words Podcast. So we are Doran and Thomas, Doran Shanehouse, Thomas Rodriguez. Our guest today is Thomas. And yeah, woo! As you remember, the reason that we're doing this podcast is we want to tell the stories of students and staff of Queens and Long Island, how people are seeking to know God, grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ, and to go and live to tell others about Him. So we've already touched on know and go. And in our third here, we're going to talk about grow. Thomas, how you feeling coming in today?
Feel good. Feel good. Yeah,
All right.
it's ready to. Yeah.
So today Thomas is not a student. Thomas is a staff, and we also in this time want to help you, the listener, get to know the staff of Queens and Long Island. So Thomas is going to be taking us back to his some formative years for himself and just beginning to walk with Jesus. So Thomas, tell us briefly about how did you kind of first start walking with Jesus? If you could do that in a minute, like what would be the Cliff Notes of that?
Yeah. Well, I got hurt in college playing baseball, and my life kind of went into shambles. I didn't know where my identity came from. And through trial and error, looking for things to fix that,
Hmm.
someone introduced me to Jesus and basically told me like he's the person and the truth I'm looking for. And so at that point in my life, I'd tried everything else, nothing worked, and so I said, let me give this Jesus a chance. And that was kind of right at the time where Cru was starting on our campus. My teammate was starting it, and we kind of became really good friends. And he discipled me, and following Jesus became more of a reality in my life.
We begin each of these podcasts, and I forgot to begin this one with it. But Thomas, as you think back to that time after you came to Jesus, what three words would you have used to describe uh, new Christian Thomas Rodriguez?
Um, like a puppy,
A
uh,
puppy.
a
Yeah.
sponge,
Puppy.
and
Sponge.
just struggle.
Struggle.
Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm. I love those pictures. Like I'm picturing the yeah,
yeah, like a
man.
puppy struggling with a sponge. Is that what you're picturing?
Now I'm picturing that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No. I was thinking puppy like a Labrador, just like hyper, like excited to play,
Mhm.
and yeah, obviously sponge. Yeah, soaking things up. But and then the struggle. We're it's not easy. It is so not easy.
Yeah.
What was something? What was one area that our students might relate with, like beginning to walk with Jesus and just struggling, just feeling like,
Yeah, I mean, I came out of a place where I was wrestling with depression and purpose of life. And so there was still like some dark days there. I was hoping magically, like all these, like I was having suicidal ideation. I was hoping all of this would go away instantly when
yeah,
I gave life to Jesus. Like I would start levitating, and that's just not the case. He gave me a purpose to live for every day, to live for his glory and not mine. And it was the hope that like one day he will wipe away every tear, every pain. And so it didn't happen overnight where all my pain, all my tears, everything was healed like I wanted it. But over time it did. But it
Mm,
wasn't like instantaneous. It was through like friendship and community and purpose and absorbing spiritual truth that slowly over time when
hmm
I look back, I gave my life to Christ in August. Like September was choppy, October was choppy, and I look back at December, January. It's like things were starting to trend in a different direction.
mm.
Um, and yeah, but it
What
took time.
what were some of the things that you think like you can look back and be like, yeah, this because of this, like that really helped, you know, trend in a upward trajectory.
I think it was just like absorbing spiritual truth. So I was like listening. I remember Francis Chan was big back then. So I was like every day listening to something from him, having Bible study every Thursday, having church every Sunday, and having friends to like talk through my questions with, my struggles with.
Hmm
And it was like slowly believing that like I was created by God and I was created for God. And it was
hmm
like slowly believing that. Um, just gave me like a reason to get up in the morning because I was
hmm
struggling to find one before.
hmm hmm hmm
It was also just like I had been hurt and I was starting to play baseball again, so it was getting some of my things I enjoy in life back.
Sure.
A little, um, yeah, I can't pinpoint anything exactly. It was just a series of things.
Okay. Okay. There is something that you mentioned there, just like even the lots of the practices that it sounded like you were saturating yourself, like you weren't just adding things to your life, like you were living into a new identity, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think I would have said that back then, but it was
sure.
just like I quickly learned like this is what you do. Like this is like you read the Bible, you pray with people, you go to church, you take God at his word. You
hmm
confess it. Like this is just part of what it looks like. In um it was just a way of life that I learned. And
hmm
yeah, I think if I wasn't in community, I think it would have maybe looked more like I just need to do these things, because but it was like I was just kind of brought in like this is what we do. This is how we live. This is how we
Yep.
follow Jesus.
Yeah. Thinking of grow, that's going to be our concept that we're addressing today. As staff, we think about, so obviously you came to know Jesus and you sought to grow in Jesus, grow in knowing Him and depending on Him, trusting Him, and we kind of boil it down to these aren't the only things, but these are some of the highlights as we think about um, students growing in Jesus, and that's growing in understanding of how to live dependent on the Holy Spirit. So we call that the Spirit filled life. Living in biblical community, so living with other people who live out the same values and the importance of that. Um, Understanding the identity of being sent, like just kind of grasping it. You may not be doing it yet, but just like I get it. I'm thinking about it and understanding that this is part of who I am. And then lastly, understanding just how to read the Bible, how to digest it, read it for yourself, to read it in community. So, which of those would you say was kind of a highlight for you in your early on walking with Jesus?
Yeah. I, actually I want to touch on the community aspect of it because
Okay.
I came in uh knowing like two Christians, like two followers of Jesus when I came to Christ. There was this
Okay.
pastor I was meeting with,
Mhm.
and then a Christian counselor I was meeting with. And
Okay.
then I called my buddy who would tweet about Jesus, and he was on my baseball team, and he was a Christian, and he
Okay.
started. But I didn't know anything about the Bible. Like I couldn't tell you where, like I couldn't pronounce the Book of Psalms. I kept saying like Palms. I was like, why is this
Awesome.
spelled weird?
Yeah.
Did not understand how to like say like James 1 verse like like nothing table of contents every time I opened the Bible. And so I didn't know how to read it. I didn't know like what I was looking for. And so having my buddy who was leading the Bible study, like modeling how to lead a Bible study, asking questions to the Bible, like reading it in a way that I could understand it and apply it. Like before that, it was just like this book that someone read at church and I didn't pay attention.
Hmm.
And then it became like, oh, this people are actually like depending on this truth. And so
Mm.
I had a million questions that I would pester him with every night. So that like those early on first few months, like I don't know if I don't know what it would have looked like for me to follow Jesus. I didn't know have a roadmap, and it was having someone kind of guide me along was like instrumental. Yeah, I could not have done that without him. And then I got to meet uh our mentor, and he kind of went through the foundation, what we call him here in Queens. And those are just like such pivotal times for me.
Mm.
To clarify like I had started following Jesus, but like I didn't, and it just kind of clarified the gospel and all the core things that we talk about,
Yeah.
forgiveness and dependence, and so
Yeah.
I don't know where I'd be without those guys. So
Yeah. No, it's interesting, or not interesting, but I think a great um, component. You know, we often we read the Bible and we think whenever it says, whoever the author is, and they use the word, well, translated into English, use the word you, and we think, oh, it's talking to me. But it's like it's talking to the people of God. It's talking to a community, and often the letters that were written or they're read in churches, they were read in community. And so the fact that you the yeah, it makes sense. The community was a significant
yeah,
piece for you. So,
when even I remember like reading the Bible, and I would have like Sports Center on in the back, and I'd read on the floor, and I would be like texting
of
my
course,
buddy and being like, "This is what I think it means to me today."
uh-huh.
I'm sure he would just like surely he would correct me, because I quickly learned that's not how you read the Bible. Like it's not like what it means for me today. It's like what does it mean for this audience, and how does it actually apply to my life?
Yeah.
Um, and it's just like I wouldn't have known that. Like I probably like I think at that point I was still like, let me just open the Bible at this page and see what God says to me today.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Like, you know, and it was like long road trips where we get to hash this out, and going to church and processing the sermon and all that stuff. That was, yeah, that taught me.
So, Thomas, community, um, various practices. One of the things that you kind of highlighted was like reading the Bible, a weekly Bible study, listening to Francis Chan, stuff like that. How did you what role specifically did reading the Bible? How did you just start that? How did you go from for not knowing how to pronounce Psalm, Psalm, to knowing that? Not that specifically, but anyway.
Yeah. I don't, it was like my counselor was encouraging me, the pastor I was connected with was encouraging me, my teammate was encouraging me, um like like Dan on staff with Cru was encouraging me. So it just like I started to feel better when I would read it, and I started to
Mm-hmm.
be more curious and hungry
Mm-hmm.
and enjoying it. And it was when I started listening to more sermons, I was like, this is so good, this is so helpful. Like what like, and so that's why I put sponge, because I was like, I just need more. I want more of this. And so I think I don't know exactly what it was. It went from like when I was wrestling with whether or not I wanted to follow Jesus. I remember thinking like, do I have to read the Bible? It sounds terrible. Um, to like, I I want to open this book.
Yep.
It went from like hiding it on campus to like having like a thick study Bible that I was like flaunting. on campus, and I think it was just like I started to understand things more.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Man, that's so good. What encouragement would you give to any of our students who might have that same feeling of the viewing the Bible, like reading the Bible is like a chore, or like feeling confused about it, and so just kind of major hesitation about reading the Bible?
Yeah. I think one, like read it with a buddy, with
Hmm.
someone. Um, read it like with intention to seek to understand, like ask questions to the text. Um, just start in the New Testament. Like, don't be a superhero, and get a study Bible and listen to sermons and be a student like you
Yeah.
are in every other phase of your college life. Um, and that it's like, man, if it is living and active, like he will speak. Like there's I think it's a Martin Luther or Charles Spurgeon, but it's like you don't have to defend a lion in the cage, you just need to open the cage.
Mm,
It's like God's word is alive. Just open the cage. And do it with people so that you
hmm.
can, yeah, have someone to tell you like that is not what that means. I promise you.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. No, that's good. So community, um, start easy, like in the New Testament, reading of Jesus, the Old Testament, Genesis through
Mal,
Malachi. I was like, wait a minute. uh, like that, we still hold to those as true, but it can be uh, a lot more context is needed for that versus reading in the New Testament. So community, New Testament, um, Gospels,
yeah,
Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, and come with questions.
yeah, maybe have a resource.
A resource, yeah, study Bible. Um, Thomas and I both would recommend. Well, I'm talking to the listeners now. I would recommend the CSB. I also like the ESV. ESV Study Bible is a good one.
And you could pay for it virtually, like digitally, so you don't have to actually
Yes,
keep it around campus.
yes, yes. We got to go back to the three words: puppy, sponge, struggle. Um, hmm, hmm. When do we want to find out your three words?
Yeah. I'm gonna answer that when I join staff.
When you join staff, let's go. Because that was just a year later, right?
That was a year and a half later. I
Year and a half
was
later.
um excited, li- like hungry and like zealous. And I would
Mm-hmm.
say I it really like that year
Mm-hmm.
of kind of that semester before I joined staff, like I actually started to live, like I really started to take steps of faith. Like I started to share the gospel. I started to actually depend, like put myself on the line so that God had to catch me. And that's even more so when the word came to life and the like grand rescue plan of the Bible made more sense to me. And so there was a sense of like when I try to live this out, it becomes more real. And so I think that was part of what, I don't know. God was doing something there. And so I think there's something to understanding and experiencing the living word when you're actually trying to obey it.
Uh, what
Um,
good is reading the word if we're not seeking to obey it? I think that ought to produce some zeal and like excitement because we're living into the relationship that we were made for. And so yeah, and impossible to do if you're not reading the word.
yeah.
So um I think of all of those things that I shared, they're all essential, but none of them are possible. Walking in the Spirit, living in community, and living on mission, none of them are possible without uh, a a regular dependence on knowing God in His Word. So, well, Thomas, thanks so much for sharing your story. You guys will be out, and we'll be taking a little bit of a break from the Three Words podcast, maybe even next fall. So stay tuned to hear about that. But quick commercial for things that are coming up. Our winter conference is January 31st to February 2nd. Our Cru conferences and events are amazing, like big bucket events where you can grow. And so, one, because there's community, there's great teaching, and there's lots of fun. So I hope that you all can join us for that, the winter conference, January 31st to February 2nd. All right. See you later.